Some mornings, I lie in bed and stare at the ceiling, trying to convince myself that today will be different. That maybe the rent won't go up again. That my paycheck will finally stretch a little further. That I'll feel something other than dread when I check my bank account. But most mornings, the ceiling doesn't respond. It just sits there, blank and indifferent, kind of like the system I'm stuck in. I'm 27. I work full-time as a customer support rep for a software company, remote, so I save on commuting, but not much else. After taxes, insurance, and deductions, I take home just under $2,400 a month. I live in a one-bedroom apartment that costs me $1,375, and that's after negotiating down from a $200 hike the landlord tried to slide in last renewal. Utilities, internet, my phone, gas, groceries, it all adds up fast. Too fast. There's never enough left over. No safety net. No real fun money. The idea of savings feels like a joke. Emergency fund? I laugh when people bring it up like it's something you can just start. Last time I had a medical bill I couldn't ignore, I had to open a new credit card. That card is now maxed out, and I make the minimum payments just to keep the wolves at bay. I can't afford to close it, but I can't afford to keep it either. Everything I do is a calculation. Do I get the good bread or the cheap loaf that goes stale in a day? Can I afford to turn on the heat this week, or do I just layer up and drink tea? A friend invites me out for drinks. What's the social cost of saying no again? How do I explain that it's not just about the $8 beer? It's the $8 beer plus the $12 Uber home plus the guilt of spending anything on myself. The economic environment feels like it's pressing in from all sides. Prices are up, wages are stagnant, and the only things growing are my anxiety and my student loan balance. I've deferred those loans twice, and I know it's just kicking the can down the road, but what choice do I have? My degree in communications hasn't exactly opened the floodgates of opportunity. And even if it did, most of those opportunities still pay barely enough to survive. I scroll through job postings constantly. Entry-level positions requiring 5 years of experience. Unpaid internships for people who already have connections. Sometimes I feel like I missed a secret memo everyone else got, one that explains how to make this all work, how to get ahead, how to breathe without feeling like you're underwater. My emotional bandwidth is paper thin. I'm tired all the time, not just physically, but existentially. I catch myself dissociating during Zoom meetings, blinking at the screen like a glitching NPC. When my boss says we should bring our full selves to work, I want to laugh. My full self is buried under a mountain of stress and late fees. I smile and nod instead. Therapy would probably help, but I can't afford it. Health insurance covers part of it, sure, but the copay is still more than I can swing regularly. So I cope the way a lot of us do. I scroll endlessly, I vent in group chats, I journal sometimes when I'm too anxious to sleep. I take walks at night, when the world feels quieter, and I can pretend for a moment that I'm just another person out for fresh air, not someone walking off the panic. I've had to put dreams on hold, no, not on hold. I've had to place them in a locked box, shove it under the bed, and hope they don't rot there. I wanted to travel. I wanted to go back to school, maybe pivot into something creative, writing, design, anything with a bit of soul. I used to imagine myself living in a tiny flat in another country, learning a new language, becoming someone brave and self-made. Now, I can't even imagine buying a plane ticket, let alone quitting my job or starting over. Sometimes I feel like a failure, even though I know logically that it's not all my fault. This system was broken long before I stepped into it. My parents used to tell me that hard work would pay off, but they lived in a different economy, a different world. I'm working hard, harder than ever, and I'm barely treading water. The promises I grew up on feel hollow now. Work hard, stay loyal, save diligently, that's not the formula anymore. If it ever was. And yet, I keep going. Partly because I have to. Partly because there's still some stubborn ember inside me that refuses to go out. Some part of me still hopes that things will change, not magically, but slowly, through a combination of luck, strategy, and resilience. Maybe I'll find a better job. Maybe I'll finally catch a break. Maybe the system will shift, even a little, in my favor. In the meantime, I do what I can. I celebrate small victories, making rent on time, cooking at home instead of ordering out, hitting a week without dipping into my overdraft. I hang on to the people who understand, who don't judge, who remind me I'm not alone. And I write. Even if no one reads it, I write to remind myself that my life, my struggles, my voice, these things matter. I don't have a tidy ending. This isn't a redemption arc or a feel-good breakthrough. It's just real life, raw and ongoing. I'm still in the middle of it, still trying to figure it out. Still hoping, still hurting, still here. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. I've been living in this strange middle ground for a few years now, not exactly poor, but never quite secure either. I make just enough to not qualify for most assistance, but not enough to feel like I'm moving forward. It's like treading water in an ocean that just keeps rising. I'm 27. I rent a small one-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood that used to be affordable but isn't anymore. Rent went up again this year. Not by a lot, maybe $120 more than last year, but enough to make me look twice at the grocery store and take longer routes home to save on gas. I work full-time in marketing. It's not glamorous, but I used to like it, writing, designing, figuring out what makes people pay attention. But lately, everything feels like a performance. Not just at work, but life in general. Smile at the office, look put together on Zoom, keep your LinkedIn updated so you seem like a hustler. Meanwhile, my checking account dips below $100 at least twice a month. I joke about it with friends like it's normal. Because it is. For us. I've got student loans. Not a crushing amount, not the horror stories you hear about, but still too much for the salary I make. They've started again after the pause, and every month I look at the balance and it hasn't moved. It feels like trying to empty a lake with a spoon. I think the worst part isn't the debt itself, it's the feeling that I did everything I was told to do, get a degree, work hard, be responsible, and I still ended up here. Every decision I make filters through money. Should I go out with friends this weekend? Can I afford to take that extra freelance job even though I'm burned out? Should I visit my parents, or is gas too expensive right now? I've become someone who cancels plans last minute with vague excuses because I don't want to admit I just can't afford it. Some nights, I sit on my floor and do math. Literally. I open a spreadsheet and try to find a way to make the numbers work. If I skip a couple streaming subscriptions, meal prep instead of eating out, maybe I can buy new shoes next month. Not fancy ones, just ones without holes in them. I used to dream big. I wanted to travel, start a little creative agency, maybe go to grad school one day. I still want those things. But now they live in a part of my brain labeled, someday, maybe. And honestly, I'm scared I'll never move them out of there. I've put off therapy because I don't have the money. I've put off dating seriously because I don't have the energy. I've put off getting a pet because vet bills terrify me. Everything feels like a luxury, even rest. I look around and see people pretending we're okay. Posting about their new jobs, their cute apartments, their weekend getaways. And maybe they really are okay. Or maybe they're doing the same thing I am, trying to look like we're not falling behind. There's a shame in struggling financially when you're not supposed to. When you have a degree. When you work full-time. When you're smart. My coping mechanisms aren't glamorous. I clip digital coupons. I sell old clothes online. I cry in the shower where no one can hear. I find little moments of peace, a walk in the park, a library book I get lost in, the rare Friday where I don't have to check my bank balance before ordering takeout. I'm not hopeless. Just tired. I still believe things can get better. I still try to be proud of myself, for surviving, for showing up, for being kind. But it's hard not to feel bitter when I see how easy it seems for some people. I wonder what it would be like to make choices based on what I want, not just what I can afford. Sometimes I fantasize about a different life, one where I don't have to pick between fixing my car and paying for a dental appointment. One where I can take a sick day without spiraling about the paycheck. One where I don't feel this constant pressure pressing down on my chest like a weight I can't drop. This isn't how I imagined adulthood. But maybe that's the trick, unlearning the idea that life is a straight path with clear milestones. Maybe part of healing is admitting that I'm doing my best, even when my best doesn't look like success. I don't know what comes next. Maybe a raise. Maybe another side hustle. Maybe just more of the same. But I do know I'm not alone. That counts for something. We're all out here, fighting invisible battles, trying to build a life with scraps and stubborn hope. If nothing else, I've learned how resilient I am. I've learned that I can stretch a dollar and still be generous. That I can be scared and still keep going. And that even when the system feels rigged, I refuse to let it take away my capacity for joy, for dreaming, for believing that one day, maybe soon, things will change. I'm 27, and I can't remember the last time I felt like I was ahead of anything. Every time I think I'm catching up, paying off a little more of my credit card, setting aside $100 into savings, something snaps. A dental bill. A rent hike. My car making a sound I can't afford to interpret. It's like running up a down escalator that speeds up every time you find your footing. I work 2 jobs. Neither is what I imagined I'd be doing after college. During the day, I'm at a call center for a health insurance company, reading from scripts and swallowing the bitterness in my voice when people ask me why their medications cost so much. At night, I bartend 3 to 4 shifts a week at a local dive. The money's not terrible, but tips have been drying up lately. People are cutting back. I can't blame them. I do it too. There are days where I skip lunch just to make sure I can afford gas. Not even a dramatic, starving artist kind of skip, just this quiet decision at 11 a.m. that I'll stretch my breakfast until I get home. I tell myself it's intermittent fasting to feel like I'm in control of something. Truth is, it's budgeting with my body. Rent went up again last month. I'm sharing a 2-bedroom with a friend from college, and we split $2,100. My half is $1050. That's over half my monthly income from the call center. And it's not like we live in some glamorous part of town. Our building smells like damp carpet, and the heater clunks like it's mourning its own existence. There's this constant, low hum of stress in my body. I feel it in my shoulders, my jaw, my stomach. Even on days off, I can't relax. I lie in bed calculating how long my car's brakes will last, if I can go another month without new sneakers, how many more nights I can work before my body tells me to stop. And if I do stop, what then? I used to dream about grad school. I was going to study urban planning. I wrote a whole thesis on equitable city design and imagined working for a nonprofit, helping reimagine how we live together. I had a notebook full of sketches and ideas. I haven't opened it in over a year. Now, my dream is just not having to choose between an oil change and paying my phone bill. I still think about grad school sometimes. But even if I got in somewhere, I'd need loans, more loans. I already owe $46,000 from undergrad. I pay $327 a month in student loans. That's after I consolidated and begged for an income-driven plan. It's a number that doesn't even look real to me anymore. Just something that drains my account on the 8th of every month. The worst part is how it messes with your sense of worth. I look around and see people my age getting married, buying houses, starting families. I'm just trying to keep my fridge stocked. Social media feels like a window into a world I can't afford to be part of. I meet a lot of people now, not because I'm bitter, but because I don't need more reminders of what I don't have. I know I'm not lazy. I work constantly. I do what I can. But no matter how much I try to save, everything costs more. Groceries. Utilities. Even cheap nights out aren't cheap anymore. I remember when a $20 night felt extravagant. Now, $20 feels like something I have to justify for days. Coping, for me, is mostly about small rituals. Cheap coffee in the morning. A walk before work when I can squeeze it in. Music in my headphones on the bus. Group chats with friends who are in the same boat. We send each other memes about the economy like it's some inside joke we didn't sign up for. It helps to laugh, even if the laughter tastes bitter. I journal a lot. Sometimes I write letters to my future self. I try to believe there's a version of me who figures it out, who maybe lands a job with benefits, pays off their loans, lives somewhere with a little space to breathe. I don't know how real that person is. But picturing them helps me survive the person I am now. Dating is hard, too. How do you build something with someone when your life is always on fire? I've ended things not because I didn't care, but because I couldn't carry the weight of someone else's expectations. I want to love deeply and show up fully for someone. But some nights, I barely have the energy to cook dinner, let alone have a meaningful conversation. I feel trapped. And I hate that word, but it's true. Trapped in a cycle that doesn't break just because I work hard. The system doesn't reward effort anymore. It rewards capital, money I don't have, connections I wasn't born with, safety nets that were never there for people like me. But I still have this strange, stubborn hope. It shows up in quiet moments, when I help a confused customer on the phone and they tell me I made their day better. When I hand a drink to someone and they tip me $5 and smile like they see me. When my roommate and I share a meal we cobbled together from leftovers and laugh about how broke we are like it's our own private language. I don't know when things will get better. But I'm still here. Still trying. Still waking up and showing up, even when the numbers don't add up. I may not have much, but I haven't let the system take my hope. Not yet. I wake up every morning with a weight on my chest that I used to think was anxiety, but now I just call it normal. The alarm goes off at 6:45 a.m., and I sit there in the quiet for a moment, dreading the math I'll do before I even brush my teeth. Rent's due in 8 days, I've got $312.18 in my checking account, and my credit card is hovering way too close to maxed out. Again. The math isn't new. It's just part of the routine now. Like brushing my teeth, or ignoring the emails from the student loan servicer. The numbers don't add up, and haven't in a long time, but I still do the math. Just in case this is the day something shifts. I'm 27. I work full-time at a digital marketing agency, making $46,000 a year before taxes. I also freelance on the side, copywriting, social media content, whatever I can get my hands on, but even that's starting to dry up. Everyone's cutting back. My rent for a one-bedroom in a neighborhood that used to be up and coming but now just feels tired is $1 for 70. Add utilities, my car payment, gas, groceries, minimum debt payments, and I'm underwater before I even consider anything extra. Like replacing the shoes with the holes in them or getting my cracked phone screen fixed. Every choice I make is filtered through this lens of what will it cost me. Not just in money, but in peace, energy, time. Friends ask if I want to go out for drinks, and I have to invent reasons not to. I lie sometimes and say I'm sick or working late. What I really mean is I can't afford a $15 cocktail or the $9 Uber back home. Even the coffee shop I used to love, where I'd sit for hours reading, writing, feeling like a person, is now a place I avoid. That $6 oat milk latte feels like a betrayal when I know my grocery budget is already stretched. It's not just the money, though. It's the constant background noise in my head. The fear that one surprise, car trouble, a medical bill, a rent hike, could ruin me. The feeling that I'm playing a game I never signed up for, with rules that keep changing. Prices go up, wages stay flat, and somehow I'm supposed to bootstrap my way out of this mess? I feel like I'm paddling against a tide that keeps getting stronger, while people on the shore yell, "Just paddle harder," as if they don't see the storm. When I was younger, I thought adulthood would feel more secure. I imagined I'd be traveling by now. Maybe going back to school. Saving for a house, even. I used to dream about starting a nonprofit focused on arts education in underfunded schools. I was passionate about it. Still am, somewhere underneath the exhaustion. But I had to let that dream go quiet. I can't afford unpaid time. I can't afford to take a risk. I remember when my dad used to say, "Just work hard and you'll be fine." And I do work hard, sometimes 60, 70 hours a week when you count the freelance hustle. But fine seems to be a moving target. I feel like I'm running in place on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, no matter how fast I go. What hurts most is how it eats away at your sense of self-worth. I catch myself thinking I must have done something wrong. Like I missed a secret manual everyone else got. I scroll through Instagram and see people my age going to Europe, getting engaged, buying houses, and I wonder what I'm doing wrong. But then I remind myself, social media is a highlight reel. I know people who post pictures of brunch but go home to unpaid bills. We're all pretending to be okay, just in different ways. I've become really good at making do. I know how to stretch a rotisserie chicken for 4 days. I track every dollar in a budgeting app and have alerts set up for when my balance dips too low. I cut my own hair now. I shop at thrift stores, not because it's trendy but because it's necessary. And still, it feels like I'm just surviving, not living. Sometimes I fantasize about what I'd do if I had just 6 months of stability. Not wealth, just enough breathing room to think, to plan, to dream again. I'd take a real vacation. I'd go back to school part-time. I'd spend time on that nonprofit idea. Maybe even write again. I used to love writing stories, journaling, anything creative. But right now, my creativity is reserved for how to keep the lights on. I've started to see a therapist through a sliding scale clinic. It helps. There's something healing about saying the scary stuff out loud, to someone who doesn't judge you for it. She told me once that I'm carrying more than anyone should have to at this age. That validation cracked something open in me. It reminded me that this isn't just a personal failing. It's systemic. It's a generation being sold a dream with no foundation. But still, I hold on to hope in small ways. I hope that one day I won't flinch when my phone buzzes, wondering if it's a bill collector. I hope that someday, I can walk into a bookstore and buy a book without checking my balance first. I hope I can build something that lasts, even if it takes me longer than I thought. Until then, I keep going. I wake up. I do the math. I grind. I write little notes to myself, "You're doing your best, this isn't forever, you're not alone." They help, more than I'd like to admit. This isn't the life I imagined, but it's mine. And I'm still here, still trying. Maybe that counts for something. I used to believe hard work was the answer to everything. It's what my parents told me growing up: if I studied hard, got into college, got a real job, then everything else would fall into place. I clung to that belief through all-nighters in school, through a part-time job in retail where I memorized the layout of every shelf to shave seconds off my stocking time, through the anxiety of graduating with student debt that made my stomach churn. I thought I was doing everything right. Now, at 27, I'm working 2 jobs just to stay in place. By day, I'm a junior project coordinator for a mid-size marketing firm. It's the kind of job you're supposed to be grateful for: health insurance, an actual desk, a title that sounds respectable. But it pays barely enough to cover rent in the city, and when I do the math on what I bring in versus what goes out, the numbers don't lie. Rent, $1,540. Student loan, $376. Groceries? God, even with ramen and bulk rice, it adds up. And don't even get me started on healthcare deductibles or the way gas prices spike whenever I start to breathe easier. Nights and weekends, I work at a cafe a few blocks from my apartment. I used to love coffee, the smell, the ritual. Now it smells like exhaustion. Every shift ends with me covered in sticky syrup and milk froth, smiling politely at people who leave $1 tips on $8 lattes. The tips help, but not enough. Everything is always just, barely enough. But never more. I know I'm not the only one feeling it. My friends and I talk in group chats about what we call financial quicksand. You can fight, scream, hustle, but you're still sinking. Most of us have degrees, side gigs, some even went back to school thinking more credentials would be the key. But rent's gone up 40% since I moved here. Groceries feel like luxury items. A dozen eggs used to be $2, now it's 5, sometimes 6. Meanwhile, my paycheck hasn't changed in over a year. Every day feels like a compromise. I buy generic cereal, split Netflix with my cousin, and still get that sinking feeling in my stomach every 14th and 28th of the month when bills come knocking. I gave up therapy because my insurance only covers 5 sessions a year and then charges $140 per visit. My mental health has never been worse, and I feel guilty even admitting that. There are moments, quiet, humiliating moments, when I panic over small things. Like when my car makes a strange sound and I have to choose between paying a mechanic or just turning the radio up louder. Or when a friend invites me out and I lie about being tired because I can't afford a $12 cocktail, let alone dinner. The hardest part, honestly, is the shame. I scroll through social media and see people my age traveling, buying homes, announcing promotions. And here I am, triple-checking my bank app before I dare buy a coffee on a day off. I keep asking myself, what did I do wrong? The answer is always a whisper in the back of my head, nothing. You just got caught in the gears. Sometimes I think about the dreams I've shelved. I wanted to be a writer. I imagined a small, sunlit apartment with plants, a used bookshelf stuffed with dog-eared paperbacks, a quiet desk with a mug of tea beside me. I was going to write novels, maybe teach creative writing. I had visions of bookstores with my name on the cover. But creative work doesn't pay. Not at first, maybe not ever. And you need stability to dream. Stability to take risks. When every dollar has a name before it even hits your account, you stop chasing what you love. You chase survival. I cope by journaling. Cheap therapy. And I call my mom when it gets really bad. She tries to help, but she's dealing with her own financial stress. Sometimes I cry after those calls. She wanted more for me. I wanted more for me. But here we are. I keep going because I have to. There's this dull kind of hope I carry, not the bright, cinematic kind, but the gritty kind that keeps you waking up. Maybe things will get better. Maybe rent will stabilize. Maybe the debt forgiveness bill will actually pass. Maybe next year I'll land a promotion. I don't believe it most days, but I repeat it anyway. Like a prayer. Like armor. And still, despite everything, I try to protect small joys. I buy the $2 candle at the dollar store that smells like lavender. I rewatch old sitcoms that make me feel safe. I read a poem before bed. I write a paragraph in a draft I might never publish. Because if I don't, I lose myself completely. This isn't the life I imagined. But it's the one I'm living. And I'm still here. Still fighting, still hoping, still dreaming quietly in the background of all the noise. That has to count for something. Some days, I feel like I'm holding my breath underwater. I've been out of college for 3 years now, and I'm still not sure when I'll be able to come up for air. Every month, it feels like I'm running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, while my legs are burning, and I can't jump off. Rent, groceries, student loans, car repairs, health insurance, it all adds up faster than I can count. And my paycheck? It's steady, but it's like trying to stop a leak with a paper towel. I work as a customer support rep for a mid-sized tech company. The job's fine, repetitive, sometimes draining, rarely rewarding, but it's a job. I'm thankful to have one, especially since a couple of my friends got laid off earlier this year. But even with a full-time income, I still live with my younger brother in a one-bedroom apartment. We split the rent and I sleep on a futon in the living room. It's not ideal, but it's what we can afford. I used to dream bigger. I wanted to work in social advocacy, maybe get a master's in public policy and help push for education reform. But those dreams have taken a back seat to just staying afloat. I looked into grad school last year, just out of curiosity, but saw the tuition costs and felt like I'd swallowed a stone. Another $80,000 in debt? I'm already drowning from my undergrad loans. My monthly student loan payment is more than my share of the rent. It feels absurd. The worst part is that I do everything I'm supposed to do. I budget carefully. I don't eat out often. I cut my own hair. I use the library instead of buying books. I haven't gone on vacation in years. My car is 14 years old and shakes when I go over 55. I even opened a high-yield savings account like all the finance blogs recommend, but there's never much to put into it. What people don't always talk about is how heavy this life feels, not just practically, but emotionally. Every day feels like a calculation. Can I afford to see a doctor about this cough that won't go away? Should I skip dinner with friends again because I don't want to spend $30 on food and drinks? Can I push off that oil change one more month and hope the car doesn't break down? There's a tightness in my chest that never fully goes away. It's a mix of anxiety, fatigue, and shame. Shame, mostly, for feeling like I'm falling behind when I've done nothing but work hard and try to stay responsible. I see people on social media buying homes, going to grad school, getting married, traveling the world, and I feel like I'm stuck on the other side of a glass wall, just watching. I know comparison is the thief of joy, but it's hard not to feel like I've failed at something invisible but important. One night last month, I sat on my futon with a spreadsheet open on my laptop, trying to figure out how I was going to afford a dental procedure I've been putting off. My molar cracked months ago, and the dentist told me it would be over $1,000 to fix it properly. I could get a temporary filling for less, but he warned it wouldn't last. I stared at the spreadsheet for an hour and cried. I haven't told anyone about that. The idea that hard work guarantees stability feels like a cruel joke sometimes. My parents worked hard too. My mom cleaned houses and my dad was a mechanic until his back gave out. They believed in the American dream and told me getting a college degree would change everything. But now, I'm in debt from that very education, and the stability I was promised seems further away than ever. I'm not saying I regret getting my degree. I learned a lot, and I met people who changed me, but I do feel like I was sold something I can't ever quite cash in. Despite everything, I keep moving. I get up every morning. I show up to work. I make my own coffee and pack lunch to save money. I text my little brother when he's having a hard day and remind him we're doing our best. I laugh with friends when we can afford to meet up. I try to be gentle with myself. I cope by finding small joys, playing guitar at night, going on long walks, making playlists of songs that remind me that it's okay to struggle. I volunteer at a local shelter when I can, which helps keep my heart soft, even when the world feels hard. And I journal, mostly just to get the storm out of my head. I still have dreams, though they've shifted. They're more modest now, more grounded in what feels possible. I want a place of my own one day, even if it's small. I want to be able to buy groceries without checking my bank balance 5 times. I want to sleep through the night without waking up in a panic about bills. And maybe, eventually, I'll find a way to go back to school, or work in a field that feels more meaningful. But for now, survival is the dream. Stability is the hope. There's this quote I read once, hope is a discipline. I think about that a lot. It's not about optimism. It's about choosing, every day, not to give up. Not to let the weight of the world crush you, even when it feels like it might. Some days that choice is harder than others. But I keep trying. I don't know if this story has a happy ending yet. But I'm still writing it. And maybe, for now, that's enough. I used to think I'd be further along by now. When I graduated college 4 years ago, I pictured myself in a cozy apartment, working a decent job, finally saving for the future I had always imagined. Nothing fancy, just stability. A weekend trip now and then, an emergency fund, maybe even a dog. But reality doesn't move at the pace of dreams. It just kind of grinds. Slowly, painfully, always just out of reach. I'm 26 now. I share a 2-bedroom apartment with a friend I met in college. It's in an old building with thin walls and a rent that eats half my paycheck, even split 2 ways. We've talked about moving somewhere cheaper, but anywhere cheaper is farther from our jobs, and the cost of gas or public transit ends up canceling out the savings. So we stay. We always stay. My job is fine, on paper. I'm a marketing assistant at a mid-sized company downtown. The job listing promised growth potential and competitive pay. What I got was a starting salary just above minimum wage, no raises in 3 years, and constant pressure to do more with less. The company cut back on team lunches, bonuses, and even office supplies. My manager told us we should feel lucky to have jobs at all. Sometimes I feel like I should agree. But it's hard to feel lucky when I'm still choosing between paying off a credit card or going to the dentist. Groceries are the worst. Every trip feels like a negotiation with myself. What do I need to stay healthy, and what can I actually afford? I shop with my calculator out, mentally subtracting as I go. Avocados are out. Chicken thighs instead of breasts. Store-brand everything. I used to like cooking, trying new recipes. Now I batch cook meals that I stretch for days. Pasta with frozen spinach. Rice with beans and whatever canned stuff I've got lying around. Eating out is a luxury. So is buying clothes that aren't second-hand. Most days, I come home tired. Not just physically, but mentally drained from the constant budgeting, the guilt of saying no to friends, the anxiety of wondering what I'll do if I get sick or my car finally gives out. I haven't been to a doctor in 2 years. My health insurance has a deductible I can't afford to hit. Every now and then, I scroll through social media and see people I went to school with getting married, buying houses, starting families. And I'm genuinely happy for them, I am. But it also makes me feel like I'm stuck in place while the world keeps moving forward without me. Like I missed the boat, and now I'm treading water, watching everyone else sail away. The hardest part is feeling like no matter how carefully I plan, it's never enough. Rent goes up. Groceries go up. My salary stays the same. I've taken on freelance gigs, writing copy for websites, editing resumes, but even that just covers the basics. I thought working hard would be enough. That if I budgeted, avoided debt, and kept my head down, things would get easier. But it's like the goalposts keep moving. The cost of living outpaces every raise. My student loans are in forbearance, because paying them would mean skipping meals. That's not a choice, it's survival. I've had to put so many things on hold. Travel? Not even a question. I've never left the country. I wanted to move to a bigger city once, try something new. But now I can't imagine uprooting everything when I barely have the money to stay put. I wanted to get a master's degree. I wanted to adopt a dog. I wanted to take a pottery class, write a book, go to therapy, start a business. All of those dreams have been shelved, tucked away in the back of my mind like books I don't have time to read. I try not to let it make me bitter. Some days I succeed. I find little things that help, a walk in the park, a good book, a cup of coffee I make just right. I remind myself that I'm not lazy. That this isn't my fault. That millions of people are in the same boat, caught in the same system that demands so much and gives so little. Still, the weight of it gets heavy. It's not just the stress, it's the loneliness, the shame, the quiet fear that things might not get better. I don't talk about this much. When people ask how I'm doing, I say I'm fine. That work is busy, that I'm tired but good. I smile. No one wants to hear about the time you cried over an unexpected bill or skipped dinner to make your money last. So you hold it in. You keep going. But I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of being scared. I want to believe in something more. I want to believe that one day I'll breathe easier, that I'll stop counting pennies, that I'll finally be able to plan for a future without feeling like I'm gambling. I want to dream again, not just survive. I don't know what comes next. I'm still figuring it out. But I'm writing this down because maybe someone out there feels the same way. Maybe they need to know they're not alone. That even if the system feels broken, we're still here. We're still trying. And maybe that's worth something. I remember a time, not too long ago, when I used to think that hard work always paid off. That if you put in the hours, did what you were supposed to do, kept your head down, and stayed kind, life would eventually reward you. That belief kept me going through high school and most of college. Now, 3 years out with a degree that cost me more than I want to admit, that faith feels like a story someone told me so I wouldn't panic. I'm 27. I live in a shared apartment with 2 other people I found on Craigslist. The rent eats up almost half of my paycheck, and that's not counting utilities or the rising cost of groceries that I can't ignore anymore. I work full-time as a customer support rep for a tech company. It's not glamorous, but it's stable, or at least as stable as anything feels these days. I make just enough to cover the essentials, and by essentials, I mean rent, food, loan payments, and the occasional therapy session I try to hold on to like a lifeline. Everything feels like a trade-off. I haven't bought new clothes in almost a year. I cut my own hair now, with a pair of scissors that barely open all the way, and I only turn the heat on when it gets unbearably cold. Most of my meals are pasta, eggs, or rice with whatever's on sale. I track every cent. I have a spreadsheet that's become my second religion. And yet, no matter how careful I am, the numbers never quite add up. Something always tips the balance: a flat tire, a medical bill, the annual reminder that my student loan interest is growing faster than my ability to pay it down. It's like trying to dig yourself out of a pit with a spoon. I think the worst part isn't even the math. It's the way it starts to seep into your sense of self. I've stopped thinking about the future as something expansive. It used to be this wide horizon full of possibilities. Now it feels more like a hallway I keep walking down, waiting for a door to open that never does. I wanted to go to grad school. I wanted to be a writer, or maybe a therapist, someone who could listen and help people make sense of things. I still write sometimes, late at night when everything's quiet and I can pretend, just for an hour, that I'm not exhausted. But it's hard to believe in dreams when the roof over your head feels like it's held up by duct tape and deferred payments. A friend once asked me what I would do if money weren't a factor. The question made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. I told them I'd travel. I've never left the country. Hell, I've barely left the state. I'd go somewhere quiet, somewhere green, maybe live in a small house and spend my days writing and drinking coffee in the sun. I'd volunteer. I'd sleep without clenching my jaw. I'd stop counting. I don't talk about this stuff often. Most of us don't. It feels shameful, even though I know logically that it's not my fault. That the system is broken, that wages haven't kept up, that inflation and corporate greed and 100 other things I have no control over are part of the problem. Still, the voice in my head whispers, you should have done better, worked harder, planned more. As if I haven't already given everything I have just to stay afloat. Coping looks like small acts of resistance. Sharing meals with friends and pretending it's not because we all can't afford to go out. Swapping clothes. Trading side gigs. Laughing about things that aren't funny just to make them bearable. And on the darkest days, it's letting myself cry without guilt. Reminding myself that I'm not weak for feeling overwhelmed, that it takes strength to keep going in a world that doesn't make it easy. I know people who are doing worse. That thought haunts me. I have a job, a roof, some support. What happens if I lose one piece of that fragile equation? How close am I to falling through the cracks entirely? And yet, I keep showing up. I keep making it work, somehow. Maybe that's what resilience looks like now, not thriving, not even hoping, just surviving with dignity. Trying to carve out little pockets of joy. A good book. A text from someone who gets it. A moment when the light hits just right and I remember that beauty still exists. I don't know what the future holds. I've stopped trying to plan too far ahead. But I haven't fully let go of hope. It's smaller now, more cautious. But it's there. I carry it like a secret. Maybe someday I'll write a book. Maybe I'll find work that feels more meaningful, less draining. Maybe things will change, if not for me, then for the people coming after. That thought keeps me going, too. For now, I get up, I go to work, I make my coffee with the off-brand beans I can afford, and I keep moving forward. Because what else can I do? Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I used to think life would start in my 20s. That's what I was told growing up: study hard, go to college, get a good job, and things would fall into place. But here I am, 27 years old, working 2 jobs, barely making rent, and feeling like I'm constantly running just to stay in place. The truth is, life did start in my 20s, just not the way I expected. It started with a long string of no's I wasn't ready for: no to health insurance, no to buying anything without comparing prices for 20 minutes, no to the dream of moving out of the city to somewhere quieter. Every morning I wake up around 6:30 a.m. in my tiny studio apartment in the outer edge of the city, the kind of place where the heat only sort of works and the walls are thin enough to hear your neighbors' arguments like you're part of the family. My first job is at a small coffee shop 2 train stops away. I used to like coffee, now I associate the smell with exhaustion, with pretending to be chipper to strangers while mentally calculating whether I have enough left in my checking account for groceries this week. After my shift, I grab a sandwich, usually from the discounted section at the supermarket across the street, and head home for a brief nap before logging on to my second job, freelance customer service for a startup that cuts costs by outsourcing everything. The pay is barely above minimum wage, and it's all contract work, so no benefits, no security. Still, it's better than nothing. Most of my friends are cobbling together similar patchwork lives. We joke about it, because if we don't laugh, we'll cry. But the jokes don't land the same anymore. The pressure is constant. Rent has gone up 3 times in the past 2 years. The grocery bill is quietly getting heavier each month. Student loan payments are back after a brief, blessed pause, and I can't afford to pay more than the minimum. Even then, I'm paying mostly interest. It's like trying to dig out of a hole with a spoon while someone dumps more dirt on your head every week. I try not to let it show, especially around my parents. They're supportive, but they don't really get it. They keep asking when I'm going to buy a house, settle down, start thinking long term. They don't understand that even a security deposit for a new apartment feels like an insurmountable mountain right now. I love them, but there's this quiet guilt when I talk to them, like I'm failing at the life they imagined for me. The emotional weight of it all is hard to explain. It's not just stress, it's this lingering sense of failure that colors everything. I didn't expect to be rich. I just thought I'd be stable by now, that I wouldn't need to mentally budget every load of laundry or panic when my cat sneezes because I can't afford a vet visit. There's this constant buzz of anxiety in the back of my mind: what if I get sick? What if the freelance work dries up? What if my landlord decides to raise rent again, and I have nowhere to go? I've had to postpone dreams I don't even talk about anymore. I wanted to travel, to write, to maybe go back to school. I used to fantasize about starting a small publishing press, working with other young writers like me. I even had a name picked out. But dreams like that cost money, and when you're this far under, dreaming feels irresponsible. I put those thoughts away like winter clothes in a too small closet, maybe later, maybe someday. Sometimes I walk by parks or bookstores and feel this odd kind of grief for the version of me that could have been. The one who didn't have to make every decision through the lens of survival. That version of me feels like a ghost, someone who died before she had a chance to live. And still, I keep going. I've learned how to find little moments of peace. Like the quiet of the early morning before the city wakes up, Or the warmth of a $3 cup of tea shared with a friend who understands. Sometimes I write, not for work, just for myself. It helps me stay connected to something inside that feels real, even when everything else feels transactional. I keep a notebook where I jot down small wins, made rent without borrowing, found a coat on sale, laughed hard with Maya about our 5-year plans being a meme. There's something powerful in those little things. Not enough to fix everything, but enough to remind me I'm still here. I don't know what the future looks like. Some days, I'm hopeful. I see people around me organizing, fighting for better pay, more housing, universal healthcare. That gives me hope. Other days, I feel like we're shouting into a void that just echoes back with the sound of stock tickers and closed doors. But I haven't given up. Not yet. I don't have a house. I don't have savings. But I have grit. I have friends who get it. I have words, mine, and others. And I hold on to those. Because maybe life didn't start the way I thought it would. But it's still mine. And for now, that's enough. I used to think by the time I turned 27, I'd have my own place with sunlight pouring in through big windows, maybe a little dog, and a job that felt like mine, like I had built it, earned it, molded it into something fulfilling. Instead, I'm sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with a friend from college, still sleeping on the same futon I had when I was 22, and watching my bank account drain a little more every month, even when I'm doing everything right. I wake up each morning to the soft hum of traffic outside and a knot already forming in my stomach. Rent is $1 for $50 for my half. That's more than half of what I make in a month working full-time at a nonprofit. It's work I believe in, youth advocacy, community building, but belief doesn't pay bills. Every dollar feels like a decision. Grocery store or gas? Fix the cracked phone screen or ignore it another month? Say yes to that coworker's birthday dinner or quietly decline again and feel the guilt twist in my chest. I count everything. Every swipe of my debit card feels like a small betrayal of the budget I scribbled in the back of my planner. I used to love going to bookstores, spending an hour flipping through pages until I found the one I'd take home. Now, I go in and take pictures of the covers to see if the library has them. I haven't bought new clothes in over a year, not because I'm particularly minimalist, but because my jeans have to last. When one pair finally ripped across the knee, I cried in the bathroom. Not because I cared about the jeans, but because I knew I couldn't replace them without giving something else up. It's not just the money. It's the constant awareness of it, the way it worms into every thought, every plan. When I'm invited to a friend's wedding across the country, my first thought isn't excitement, it's the panic of airfare. When I think about dating, I wonder how I'll ever afford splitting dinners, taking trips, showing up without feeling like I'm barely holding it together. I haven't been on a real vacation since high school. I tell myself I'm being practical, but sometimes it feels like I'm slowly building a life around what I can't have. I try to stay positive. I really do. I take walks in the morning when I can, make coffee at home, meal prep, and journal. These things help, tiny rituals that make me feel like I still have some control. I keep a vision board above my desk, a cabin in the woods, a photo of Lake Bled in Slovenia, a home office, a smiling dog. I look at it most days and try to believe that someday, somehow, I'll get there. But then I open another bill. Or gas goes up 20 cents again. Or my friend, who took a corporate job out of college, tells me about their promotion and new apartment and I nod and smile even though part of me wants to scream. I chose purpose over profit, didn't I? That's what I tell myself. But purpose doesn't erase the shame I feel when I overdraft, or the tightness in my chest when I realize my credit card balance is creeping back up again. I know I'm not alone, so many of us are here, balancing on this razor-thin edge, but it still feels isolating. It's the system. That's the part that makes me feel the most hopeless sometimes. I did everything they said. I went to college. I worked unpaid internships. I networked. I kept my GPA up. I took the right job. And still, I can't seem to move forward. Expenses grow like weeds and my income is a trickle. Rent increases. Health insurance premiums. Groceries. Everything inches up, up, up. My paycheck? Stays the same. Sometimes I let myself fantasize about winning the lottery, not because I think I will, but because it's the only scenario I can imagine where I stop feeling afraid. Where I could breathe. Where I could help my mom pay off her credit cards or finally take that solo trip to the Pacific Northwest without wondering what bill I'd have to skip. I had dreams once. I wanted to go to grad school for counseling. I wanted to learn how to play the cello. I wanted to adopt a senior dog and name him Walter. Now, I just want to get through each month without having to ask my dad to float me $100 to make rent. I feel like I pressed pause on all the parts of my life that require growth, or risk, or money, just to survive the present. People tell me I'm resilient, and maybe I am. But I'm also tired. I want more than just endurance. I want ease. I want the kind of life where I can make plans that aren't contingent on my bank balance. Where I can buy a coffee without running the numbers in my head first. Where I can say yes to things, not just out of obligation, but out of desire. For now, I cope how I can. I laugh with friends over boxed wine and homemade pasta. I read library books that transport me to other worlds. I listen to music while walking home because I can't afford the bus and because it makes the city feel a little less lonely. And I keep showing up. I work hard. I try to stay hopeful. But some days, it feels like the system is built to keep me exactly where I am, running on a treadmill that never stops, just speeds up. And I'm scared. Not of failing, exactly, but of never having the chance to try. Sometimes I wake up and the weight of the day presses down on me before I even open my eyes. It's like this invisible force sitting on my chest, reminding me that I'm trapped, caught in a cycle where my paycheck barely stretches to cover the basics, let alone the extras that make life feel like living instead of just surviving. I'm 26, working a full-time job, doing my best to keep everything together, but it feels like the ground beneath me keeps shifting faster than I can adjust. Every month, it's the same story. Rent is up again, groceries seem to cost more than last week, and my utility bills climb higher despite my efforts to be frugal. The cost of transportation, the occasional coffee I allow myself for a moment's sanity, each small expense chips away at what little is left after bills. Sometimes I look at the numbers on my bank app and just stare, feeling a kind of panic creeping up. It's like a slow bleed, this financial pressure. Not one big crisis, but a constant erosion of hope. I remember when I was a kid, I dreamed of traveling the world, of saving enough to start a little business, maybe a coffee shop of my own. I imagined weekends spent with friends in parks, dinners out, spontaneous trips. Now, I barely have the mental space to entertain those dreams without feeling a stab of guilt or anxiety. How can I think about building something when I'm barely treading water? The economic environment outside my door feels like a storm that's always getting worse. Inflation rises, wages stagnate, and promises of better times ahead sound like a cruel joke when all I see is my bank balance shrinking. There's a strange kind of shame in being young and struggling financially when so many people your age seem to be thriving or at least holding steady. I scroll through social media and see friends posting about new apartments, promotions, weekend getaways, and I want to feel happy for them, but mostly I feel invisible, like I'm falling behind in a race that was never really fair to start with. It's hard to admit, but sometimes I envy the people who have support systems, family who can help if things get tight, friends who can lend a hand. I've tried to keep it all to myself, but the loneliness that comes with financial stress is a real thing. My daily decisions have become a series of trade-offs. Should I buy groceries now or save for the bus fare for the week? Can I afford the utility bill, or do I risk a late fee so I can pay rent? These aren't choices anyone should have to make constantly, but they've become routine for me. I've grown hyper-aware of every cent I spend. Coupons, sales, discounts, I track them all, not out of some hobby but necessity. Some days, the thought of cooking yet another meal from canned beans and frozen vegetables feels so exhausting I almost want to give up. But I keep going because what's the alternative? Emotional exhaustion sets in. It's not just about money, it's about feeling like my worth is measured by what I can afford, or rather, what I can't. There's a creeping sense of failure when I can't do the things I once dreamed of, going back to school, saving for a future, having a safety net. I carry a low-grade anxiety like a shadow, sometimes crushing enough to make me want to shut everything out, to hide under the blankets and pretend it's not happening. Yet, somehow, I cope. I've learned to find small moments of relief in the mundane. A walk in the park, a call with a friend, a good book borrowed from the library, they don't solve the financial stress, but they remind me I'm still human, still worthy of joy. I've started journaling, pouring these feelings onto paper, because if I don't say them out loud, they just fester. It's a quiet rebellion against the system that wants me to stay silent and small. I hold on to hope, though it's fragile. Hope that one day the economy might shift, that wages will catch up to costs, that I might find a job that pays more or a way to create something for myself. I dream of financial freedom, not extravagance, just enough to breathe, to live without this constant gnawing fear. Sometimes I think maybe I'll go back to school, maybe I'll start a side hustle, maybe I'll move somewhere cheaper. But even those plans feel distant, postponed indefinitely by the reality of monthly bills and immediate survival. I'm learning to be kind to myself amid the struggle, even when the world feels cold and indifferent. I'm learning that vulnerability is strength, that speaking openly about this feels like breaking a spell that's kept me isolated. I'm not just a number or a paycheck. I'm someone with dreams and fears, someone trying to carve out a life in a system designed to keep me squeezed tight. And maybe, just maybe, sharing this story is a small step toward reclaiming my future. I never thought I'd find myself stuck like this, like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up while my legs get heavier. Every day, the weight of money presses down harder, squeezing tighter. I'm 26 now, but some days I feel decades older, drained not just by work, but by the endless grind of just trying to keep my head above water. It's like the world around me keeps getting more expensive, faster than any paycheck can grow. Rent, groceries, utilities, gas, everything seems to jump up overnight. Yet my income stays stubbornly the same, or barely inches forward. I watch prices creep up on the shelves, on my phone bills, on the smallest things I need. It's exhausting to calculate every expense before I even think about enjoying anything. I remember when I first moved out of my parents' house, thinking, this is it, my chance to finally be independent, make my own choices. But independence tastes bitter when it's always shadowed by fear that one small unexpected bill will send me into chaos. Last month, my car broke down, and suddenly I was forced to choose between fixing it or paying my credit card minimum. Fixing the car won. I can't afford to lose my job by missing work. The financial pressure isn't just about numbers, it's about the way it eats away at my sense of self. I've had to tighten my belt so many times that it's almost second nature now. Canceling subscriptions, skipping meals I don't absolutely need, cutting back on social events. Even my friendships have frayed because I can't keep up with the costs of going out. It's hard to explain to people why I always have to say no. Every paycheck comes with a bittersweet feeling. Relief that I have money at all, but also dread, because I know it will vanish faster than it arrived. I budget meticulously, every dollar accounted for, but still, it never feels like enough. Bills pile up. Savings? What's that? The idea of an emergency fund feels like a cruel joke. One minor surprise and I'm back at square one. Emotionally, this kind of pressure is a silent thief. It steals my peace. Some days I lie awake at night, heart pounding, running through scenarios. What if I lose my job? What if the rent goes up again? What if I get sick? I try to push those thoughts away, but they linger like a storm cloud that won't pass. I found myself avoiding mirrors sometimes because I don't recognize who's staring back. The fatigue shows in my eyes, the constant worry etched into my face. It's hard to stay hopeful when the system feels rigged, like no matter how hard I work, the goalposts keep moving. I'm trapped in a loop where expenses grow faster than my income, where the harder I push, the heavier the weight gets. Yet somehow, I keep going. I find small ways to cope, long walks when the stress is overwhelming, journaling my fears, holding on to the few relationships that understand. I remind myself that this isn't permanent, even though it feels permanent right now. I try to celebrate small victories, like finally paying off a credit card or managing to cook a decent meal instead of ordering takeout. But my dreams have had to wait. I wanted to travel, to see the world, to build a home, to maybe go back to school for something I'm passionate about. All those hopes are on hold, gathering dust in the corner while I focus on survival. The idea of investing in myself feels like a luxury I can't afford. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever get there, or if this cycle will just keep looping. I wish people could see what it's like beneath the surface. Not just the paycheck, the rent checks, the bills, but the quiet desperation that comes with feeling like you're always one step behind, no matter how hard you run. I wish it was easier to talk about money without shame or guilt, to admit when you're struggling and not feel like you've failed. Maybe one day, things will shift. Maybe the economy will stabilize, or I'll find a better opportunity. Maybe I'll build a cushion that feels real, not just a distant dream. For now, I keep moving forward, even if it's just one small step at a time, hoping that someday this pressure will ease, and I'll finally breathe without counting every cent. I never thought I'd feel this way, like I'm constantly drowning, even though I'm still standing. Every morning, I wake up knowing the same weight will be pressing down on me by the end of the day. The money just isn't enough. It's not a sudden crisis or some one-time emergency, it's the slow, grinding reality of living paycheck to paycheck in a world where everything costs more, but my income barely budges. I'm 27 now. When I graduated college, I had big dreams, traveling, owning my own place, even starting a little side hustle I was passionate about. But those dreams have slowly faded into this constant balancing act. Rent, utilities, groceries, transportation, all the basics keep creeping up. I've seen my paycheck stay almost the same, or at best inch forward by a few dollars here and there, but it never matches the rising costs. The gap keeps widening, and I'm stuck trying to fill it with scraps. There are days I catch myself just staring at my bank account, feeling like I'm looking at a slowly draining well. It's not just the numbers, it's the feeling that no matter how hard I try, I can't get ahead. I've had to cancel plans with friends because splitting a dinner or going out for coffee suddenly feels like a luxury. Even buying new clothes or treating myself to something small feels like an unnecessary risk. I remember last year, the price of my apartment rent went up again. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the new lease agreement, heart pounding because I knew exactly what it meant, even less money for everything else. I thought about moving somewhere cheaper, but good options don't exist in my city anymore, or if they do, they're in places I can't realistically commute to work from. So, I swallowed the bitter pill, signed the lease, and adjusted my budget again. Budgeting is a constant part of my life now. It's like a full-time job on top of my actual job. I track every cent, hunt for discounts, clip coupons, and cook meals from scratch just to stretch things out. I've stopped buying things I once enjoyed, like the occasional concert ticket or a new book. I tell myself it's temporary, but deep down, I wonder how long I can keep this up. Financial pressure doesn't just shape my spending, it shapes my whole emotional world. There's this gnawing anxiety that sits under everything I do. I lie awake some nights, heart racing, wondering what happens if something unexpected comes up, a car repair, a medical bill, or even just a forgotten expense. I have no cushion, no safety net. It's terrifying, but I've learned to hide it well. I don't want my friends or family to worry, they have their own struggles. Sometimes, I get overwhelmed by this invisible trap. It feels like the system is designed to keep me small, always chasing after an ever-moving goalpost. Working harder doesn't seem to help much anymore. I've taken extra shifts, side gigs, even sold some old things, but the pressure just shifts to a new expense or a new cost increase. It's exhausting. And it's not just about money, it's about hope. I'm terrified of settling into this endless loop, the adult life where dreams are just postponed indefinitely. I used to imagine saving for a down payment on a house, traveling to places I've only read about, or even going back to school to study something new. Now, those ideas feel like distant fantasies. Instead, I'm trying to keep the lights on and avoid falling deeper into debt. I sometimes catch myself comparing my life to others. Social media doesn't help with this, it's a highlight reel of people traveling, buying new things, or starting families. I feel invisible next to that, like I'm stuck on the sidelines. But I try to remind myself that everyone has their own battles, even if they don't show it. Still, the loneliness creeps in, especially on days when the pressure feels overwhelming. Coping has become a mix of small survival tactics and moments of quiet resilience. I've found solace in small things, long walks in the park, listening to music, or journaling my thoughts. Those moments are like tiny pockets of peace amid the chaos. Sometimes, I call a friend just to talk, to remind myself I'm not alone in this. Those conversations mean more than I can say. I wish there was a way to break free of this cycle. I keep hoping for systemic changes, better wages, more affordable housing, and a world where hard work actually means progress. But until then, I'm learning to live with the tension between hope and reality. Maybe one day I'll look back and see this as a chapter of growth, a time when I learned resilience and gratitude in ways I never expected. For now, though, I'm just trying to keep going, to hold on to the belief that the future can be better than today. Even if it's hard to see, I'm still dreaming. And somehow, that keeps me moving forward. I wake up every morning to the same nagging weight pressing down on my chest, the kind of heaviness that no cup of coffee or motivational quote can shake off. It's the weight of knowing that my paycheck, which once felt like a lifeline, barely stretches to cover the basics anymore. I'm 27, working 2 jobs, and still, the numbers never seem to add up. When I was a kid, I imagined my 20s would be about exploring the world, making mistakes, and finding myself. Instead, most days feel like a constant balancing act, juggling bills, rent, groceries, and the invisible expenses that somehow sneak up on you. Every month, it's the same story. My income grows a little, if at all, but rent, utilities, insurance, and food prices climb relentlessly, like some cruel tide I can't swim against. And when I think I'm getting ahead, a medical bill or car repair pulls me right back into the red. It's not just about the money, it's the way this pressure reshapes everything about my life. I don't go out with friends much anymore. Saying yes to dinner or a movie feels like a luxury I can't afford. The nights I do spend alone, I'm haunted by what I'm missing, the connections, the carefree moments, the joy of spontaneous plans. Instead, I'm stuck in this cycle of sacrifice and survival. Even grocery shopping has become a calculated mission. I scan prices and swap brands, constantly battling between eating healthy and keeping costs down. It's exhausting. Sometimes I just want to buy the food I crave, but I can't. So I settle for whatever's cheapest, even when my stomach grumbles in protest. Food, once a source of comfort, has turned into another source of stress. The system feels rigged. I see it in the headlines about inflation, stagnant wages, and housing markets. But these stories rarely capture what it's like to live it every single day, to feel trapped in a cycle where your expenses balloon faster than your income ever will. I work hard. I'm reliable, responsible, and yet, it feels like the system isn't designed for someone like me to get ahead. It's designed to keep me just barely afloat. Sometimes, I lie awake at night, heart pounding, wondering how I'll pay next month's rent or cover a surprise expense. I've started setting alarms just to remind myself to transfer money for bills because I'm so drained it's hard to keep track of everything. Anxiety gnaws at me constantly, and I worry about what will happen if I ever lose one of my jobs or get sick. There's no safety net here, only the endless pressure to keep moving forward, no matter how tired I am. I've had to put dreams on hold. I once wanted to travel, see new places, meet new people, learn new things. Now, that feels like a fantasy for someone else, not me. I've delayed saving for a car, for further education, for even small pleasures like going to concerts or buying new clothes. Every dollar I save is earmarked for emergencies, or rent, or paying down debt. But somehow, despite all this, I'm still holding on to hope. It's fragile and often overshadowed by fear, but it's there. I dream of a day when I can breathe a little easier, When money isn't the first thing I think about every morning or the last thing on my mind at night. I want to feel secure, to make plans without second-guessing if I can afford them, to find joy without guilt. I cope the best I can. Sometimes that means talking to friends who understand, even if they don't have the same struggles. Sometimes it means small acts of kindness to myself, a favorite song, a walk in the park, a quiet moment with a cup of tea. And sometimes it's just getting through the day, 1 hour at a time. Being young in this economy feels like being caught in a relentless storm with no shelter. You learn to weather the rain and hope for a break in the clouds. I'm still here, still trying, still hoping that someday the pressure will ease and I can finally live, not just survive. Until then, this is my reality, and I'm telling it honestly because it matters. It's real. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there will hear it and understand what it's like to be stuck in a system where the cost of living outpaces your paycheck, your dreams, and sometimes even your hope. I never thought I'd be here, caught in this endless loop of stress and scrimping, wondering if anything will ever get better. I'm 27, working a steady job, but somehow the money never stretches far enough. It feels like the world around me is moving forward, but I'm stuck, sinking deeper into this financial quicksand where expenses keep rising, but my paycheck stays the same. Every morning, I wake up knowing I'll be wrestling with numbers in my head all day. Should I buy groceries or put that money toward an overdue bill? Can I afford to fill my gas tank, or should I just hope the bus schedule works out this week? Even small choices feel like huge decisions when you're constantly counting every cent. Rent is the monster in the room. My apartment is nothing fancy, a tiny, cramped space that costs more than it should because there's simply no affordable alternative in the city where I work. I remind myself it's a roof over my head, but sometimes it feels more like a cage. The landlord raised the rent again this year, just like last year and the year before. Every increase is a punch in the gut because I know my salary won't budge to match it. I've asked for raises, more than once, but the response is always the same: we appreciate your work, but budget constraints don't allow for raises right now. It's like the company is thriving while I'm barely treading water. The bills pile up faster than I can pay them. Electricity, internet, phone, these are things I can't cut back on without feeling cut off from the world. And then there's food. I used to love cooking and trying new recipes, but now I'm in survival mode. I buy whatever's cheapest, even if it means eating the same bland meals week after week. Sometimes I catch myself staring at the price tags, mentally calculating what I should buy instead of what I want or need. Fresh vegetables? Not this week. That pack of chicken breasts? Maybe next paycheck. Social life has shrunk almost to nothing. I don't want to admit it, but I avoid invitations to hang out because I know I can't afford a night out, or even a coffee. When friends talk about travel plans or weekend getaways, I smile and nod, but inside I'm thinking about how long it's been since I had a vacation. Even small luxuries feel like distant dreams. I remember when I used to imagine my life differently, what it would be like to have some financial breathing room, to save up for a car, or even just a new laptop without stressing about every dollar. The constant pressure is exhausting. I get headaches more often now, and some nights I lie awake staring at the ceiling, worried about what will happen if something unexpected breaks or I get sick. Emergency funds? I don't have one. The idea of setting aside money feels impossible when I'm just trying to keep the lights on. I try to cope the best I can. Sometimes I binge-watch shows late at night, letting myself escape into other worlds for a little while. Other times, I take long walks, telling myself that exercise is free therapy. I talk to my partner about money. Sometimes we argue because the stress spills over. But we remind each other that we're in this together, even if the future feels uncertain. Despite everything, I hold on to some hope. I've started taking free online courses to improve my skills, hoping that one day I can land a better job, something with benefits and a decent salary. It's hard not to feel bitter sometimes, but I remind myself that giving up won't help. I'm trying to build a foundation, even if it feels like I'm crawling up a steep hill. I've had to postpone so many dreams, owning a home, traveling, even small things like buying a new winter coat or saving for a wedding. Sometimes I wonder if I'm sacrificing my youth for this grind, but I try to believe there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Most days, I'm just trying to survive. But every now and then, I allow myself to dream a little. Maybe one day, the economy will work in my favor. Maybe one day, my efforts will pay off and I'll finally breathe easy. Until then, I'm here, balancing bills and hopes, learning to be resilient in a world that never seems to pause for anyone like me. I never thought I'd feel this way in my mid-20s. When I was younger, I had big dreams, a small apartment of my own, a decent job that paid well enough to save a little, maybe even travel somewhere exotic before turning 30. But here I am, and it's like I'm stuck on a treadmill that keeps speeding up while I'm running just to stay in place. The financial pressure has been this low hum in my life for years, but lately, it's become deafening. Rent keeps climbing, groceries cost more each month, and every unexpected bill feels like a punch to the gut. I work 2 jobs, one full-time office gig and a part-time weekend shift, and still, by the time all the bills are paid, the leftover feels like a cruel joke. I'm trapped in this system where the expenses are rising faster than my paycheck, and it's exhausting. I start most days with this sinking feeling in my stomach. It's not just about the money, it's the anxiety that comes with not knowing if I'll make it through the month without having to borrow from a friend or max out a credit card. That kind of stress seeps into everything, my sleep, my relationships, even how I see myself. I sometimes catch myself thinking, am I just bad at managing money? Am I not working hard enough? But deep down, I know it's not just me. The whole system is broken, wages stuck, prices soaring, and safety nets that barely exist. Simple things have become complicated decisions. I remember last month, staring at the fridge and weighing whether to buy fresh vegetables or the cheaper canned ones. Both were necessary, but one felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. Eating out, something I used to do with friends to unwind, now feels like an indulgence I have no right to. I cancel plans, make excuses, because even a $10 coffee feels like a reckless splurge. I've grown used to feeling guilty over money. Guilty when I say no, guilty when I say yes and later regret it, guilty for dreaming bigger than what my bank account allows. It's a constant mental battle, and sometimes the guilt bleeds into my self-worth. How can I build a life or contribute to the world if I can barely cover my own basic needs? But I'm not completely defeated. Somehow, I keep finding little ways to cope. I've learned to meal prep, to hunt for deals, to negotiate bills. I've started a small side hustle, selling handmade crafts online, not because it's easy or fun, but because it's one more way to stretch the dollars. I count every cent and celebrate tiny wins, like saving $5 on a utility bill or finally paying off a small debt. Those moments feel like breathing room. Still, the dreams I once chased have been shelved indefinitely. I postponed going back to school to upgrade my skills because the cost is just too high. A trip to visit my family across the country is something I think about but can't justify. Even the idea of moving to a better neighborhood feels impossible when the rent hikes make even this cramped, noisy place hard to keep. There are days when I wonder if things will ever get better or if this cycle will just keep spinning. But I try to hold on to hope that I'm not alone, hope that someday the economy will shift, that wages will catch up, that I can finally breathe without feeling crushed. I remind myself that my worth isn't defined by my bank balance, even if the world tries to make me believe otherwise. Talking about this has been hard. It feels vulnerable, almost like admitting failure. But maybe that's the point, to be honest about the struggle, because it's real, it's raw, and it's happening to so many of us. If sharing this story can help someone else feel seen or remind them they're not alone, then it's worth it. Right now, the financial pressure feels like a weight I carry every day. But I'm still here. Still fighting. Still hoping for a day when the treadmill slows down and I can finally step off and build the life I've dreamed about for so long. Until then, I keep going, one careful step at a time. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.